Yo, what's up, guys? It's Black Monday, March 9th. Wanted to give you guys a quick video, um, give you guys kind of an idea of my thought process of all this and how this is working out. Been talking to my buddy all weekend since Saturday. He's a director at a major oil major oil company here in the States, and he kind of he's gone over all of the real reasoning this has happened. Now, this is the chart of the SPY. Kind of quickly go over what has happened in the past 2 weeks. This is where I went into cash, and I've been picking my spots as far as trades. We found out about the coronavirus in here. The market blew it off, and it went on for another 2 weeks, and then it cratered. So what's really going on is, in short, is that the coronavirus is basically bullshit. It's kind of pushed on all of us. It's causing a global slowdown. And what's happening is this past Saturday night, the Saudis undercut and put their oil prices basically for sale, like for like 20%. So what that did is it threw the entire not only U.S. market but the world markets in sort of like panic, right? And what has been like a perfect sort of segue for that to be done is going to be this fucking coronavirus, which is basically a bad cold or a flu. What's really going on is that the need for oil is becoming less and less, especially here in the U.S., where in the Permian Basin in Texas, we are actually exporting oil. So the U.S. is no longer dependent on the oil in the in the Middle East or Russia or basically anywhere. But what pisses the Saudis and the Russians off is that the price of oil is done in U.S. dollars still, even though we don't even give a fuck about them. So as a kind of a last ditch effort, the Chinese, the Saudis, and the Russians, because they're the owners of all the oil, but their leverage and their price of oil is coming down because of the need, based on Tesla, based on everybody's want to kind of go green, based on climate change and all that shit. So these fucking oligarchs and Russian fucking barons, families who have owned oil and who have controlled the world for the past 100 years, they are getting scared, and they're realizing that they're going to lose their grasp on the commodity that has given them basically the world for the past 100 years. They are losing grip on power and everything else. So their only way to kind of disrupt the US, which is doing great because of companies like Tesla and Amazon and Google, and all of the world follows us, and the rest of the world, they're getting further and further behind, especially when they've been counting on oil forever, and especially when oil is becoming less and less needed. The Saudis undercut the price Saturday, and I'm sure they've been shorting the U.S. market for the past month because they were planning this. So they've been making money on the way down, even though they've dropped their price in oil. They've been shorting the U.S. market probably for the past month, waiting for them to knowingly do this. So basically what has to happen is that oil has to find a bottom. There's excess supply in oil all over the world because of not only like things like Tesla, but actually this global pandemic that has happened. The price of of oil is dropping, and this was their last ditch effort to kind of get the U.S. out of the oil in the Middle East and in Russia. They want to get separate, and they want to keep, their sort of leverage on the eastern part of the world, because they know that in time, which is going to be very soon, um, the U.S. is just going to move on because we don't even need their oil. So basically, they've tanked our stock market, along with your 401ks, which is pretty sad, but that's how the the world works. On top of that, the stock market is so affected because our basic, worldly function as far as markets goes, it's been based off of oil and banks. Banks give a ton of loans to oil. Um, Oil price and need drops, and therefore all of the people who own these oil companies, they're no longer able to pay back these loans from the banks in full. Therefore, the whole stock market tanks, including the U.S. and everything else. So that's what's really going on here. And if you can kind of step back and recognize that this happens every 10 years, something happens, whether it's 9/11, the mortgage crisis of '08, um, the stock market crash of '87. Something happens every 10 to 15 years where it wipes out everybody's savings and retirements. It transfers money from the normal people to the rich, and to the people who know how to make money on the way down. It keeps the average person afraid to learn about the stock market because they just basically give up and say, you know what, I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to let my work pension fucking fund, whatever, take care of it. And they don't get involved and basically educated about how the stock market works because it's just fear driven. And most of all, it keeps the average person working. So if our stock market went up forever and your pension and your retirement kept going up, at some point when you're 40, 50 years old, you would just gladly say, you know what, my retirement's up huge. I'll just go ahead and take the tax hit and cash out and stop working. Well, that doesn't work for the overall way of, I guess, living. We need people working. That keeps our stock market up. We need everybody to keep working, to keep spending, and that is true all over the world. So this is just one basic huge game, and if you don't know how to play it, then you kind of get caught in the middle. Again, these bank to oil, loans, they're probably going to be, too big to fail, and they're going to get saved in some shape or fashion. We probably won't even hear about it. But this is what's really happening. This fucking flu bug is nothing but that, but it was a way to get a disruption in the global market, as well as, and especially in the U.S. I'm 100%, 1,000% sure that the Saudis and any of their partners were planning this, and they were shorting the U.S. market all the way up here at its highs, because this is the only way that they can get to us. So during times like this, it's important to kind of figure out, where the overall kind of world is going, and that's going to be alternative energies, wind, solar, Tesla, all these things. I'll give you guys some company names, which I've done in the past a little bit, but my main names are going to be NE, wind solar company. Their all-time highs was just a few weeks ago at 280s. It's only down 260s, versus oil companies like Chevron down like 15-20%. So there's NE. Take a look at NE. Take a look at BEP. These are probably my top two. BEP, they were down to 49 today. Their all-time highs was just a few weeks ago at 57, but this thing has just gone straight up. So it's doing great. There is a smaller company called TAC. They're down a lot today, but they're still a cheap company. I think this is something to kind of look towards. Also, just gold and silver. Gold has been up big recently, and as you can see, it's at 157. Silver usually follows gold. It hasn't yet, so this might be something to actually keep an eye on. If this breaks out over, it's almost 16 right now. If it breaks these two highs, I think it's going to follow gold, and you might see silver, up in these areas sooner or later. A company that I talked about last time, it's going to be TDoc. This is telemedicine. So you basically hop online instead of going into the hospital to get, prescriptions, to get all that stuff done. They were only down 1.5% today. So I was in this on Friday. This opened up $10 lower, so I got hit a little bit on this, but I sold up here, and then I saw how it just raged during the day, and I jumped back in. So also fortunately I was short Chevron on Friday, and I woke up to a nice profit this morning. I'm still in it short. I was in it at 95. I had some put options. It closed at 95 on Friday, and then this should happen this past Saturday, and I woke up and to some nice gains. So I'm still short that. Again, in the overall market, let me tell you guys what I'm looking for in the future. Let me go to the weekly chart of the S&P. Again, the reason why the S&P is getting hit so bad, and the overall market, is because the banks, they've loaned tons of money to these oil barons, and also the S&P 500. It has a bunch of these fucking oil companies in it. So it has the top 500 companies, and they're going to start to have to restructure the S&P 500 along with all of the other ETFs, because oil is no longer what we're going to base our lives off of, and that's going to be less and less as time goes on. It's going to be more, wind, solar, and a mix of everything versus just purely oil. So in a long-term sense, the market's still in this uptrend. We've been following this trend since 2009. Trump was elected right there. We've taken some breaks, right here and right here, and we're still intact. This trend line that's coming up is at 250s on the SPYs. If we don't hold this, if we don't bounce off the 255 area and hold this line, I think we're going to go into a bear market. It already broke this trend line right here. Get rid of that. When it broke that trend line, I went to pure cash and have been totally trading just here and there. But again, if we don't hold this long-term trend line, we're going to go to a bear market, and bear markets can last anywhere from 4 months to 2, 3, 4 years. And if that happens, if this oil thing doesn't get figured out, we can test any of these lows in here. But one bright spot in this whole thing is going to be Tesla. It's giving us a shot at Tesla in the lower prices. So remember when I made a video about Tesla? They sold a bunch of shares right here, and it popped back up, and then they got like $1,000 price target. So I bought right down here. I bought again in here, but I sold right here because it didn't, hold these gains. So I have some shares of Tesla at 630. I bought a little bit today again, but there's massive support here in the 4 to 5 to 600s. So my plan is to get an average cost of in the 500 somewhere, whether it dips to 400. I don't think it will. I think it might go to high 400s, at worst. But again, this whole fucking mess has nothing to do with Tesla. It has zero to do with it. Tesla's just going down because of the entire market. Um, I have shares at 630, and I'm gonna continue adding anywhere in here, anywhere from 600 to 400. I'm just gonna add, $100 a day, $200 a day, $1,000 a day, just kind of depending what I'm seeing that day. I'm probably gonna, put a good chunk of money in Tesla and just leave it there for the next 10 years. And again, this is a good opportunity for Tesla. I will look forward to you guys letting me know if this video made sense. Again, I think it's all bullshit, but I think it's an opportunity for us to kind of get back into Tesla, probably things like Amazon. I'm not so sure about Google, but definitely Amazon and like Microsoft. Apple, probably that too. So I wouldn't jump in the market yet. I think it's going to be a while till the oil prices kind of stabilize, based on my conversations with my buddies. So if you can, if you have access to your retirement fund, I'd probably go all in cash, or non-aggressive if you can't like literally go in there and sell. So, if you guys have any questions, man, let me know. Peace.